In this video, I want to talk about function and disability. That must be the title, as you must have been seeing it. इसमें मैं बात करूँगा function की in the context of capitalism and उसको मैं connect करूँगा last में towards disability. Function as in, I mean, function, how people function under capitalism, and how the meaning of function kind of changes radically due to disability and for, of course, disabled people. Getting ready for some philosophy theory या आपको जो भी बोलना है सर ताकि ठंड बहुत है क्या कर सकते हैं. So we know how it is under capitalism. हम लोग overworked हैं, underpaid हैं, we have too many responsibilities to look after, and we cannot invest in our relationships and can't spend time with anyone, and etc etc. We know the drill. So surely capitalism's effects invades every small part of our lives. That's for sure. There is no doubt about it. Those people who can maneuver through all the responsibilities, all the headache of life itself, which is governed by capitalism for sure, uh, are like the ones who kind of function through things, right? So that's the key word here. That's why I wanted to point that people can function in certain kind of contexts, right? That we get up from the bed, that we do our daily bidding of things, and then we go to work, we be on time, and then we can do things as well over there. I mean, it's not just that you have to do your own care, you have to reach your office or whatever. You have to be, in my case, I had to be on the field at a specific time and things like that so that I can meet people. Mine was kind of fun. My work, my own work. I was working as a journalist, so that was really, really fun in that context. But it still was like pretty difficult to travel all the way to different places and everything, and it costed a lot of money. But anyways, keeping that aside, we know that this is what the basic idea of function means. This, of course. So this is kind of the basic understanding of what we mean by function and being functional. uh, तो जो लोग ये कर पाते हैं can be termed as functional, but the people who cannot do the basic stuff in their lives have, like, you know, to get up in the morning and go to office and everything, and as I talked about, those are termed, like, in many different contexts, are termed as lazy, as non-functional. My hands got cold while doing all these hand movements. समझाते समझाते. Well, anyway, मेरे दिमाग में आता है Mark Fisher, of course, in these contexts, who has convincingly showed us how, uh, you know, mass consumer culture and, you know, depression are, like, you know, have to be politicized. Mental health has to be politicized when people cannot function in the ways they're supposed to, so that they take care of their own responsibilities and everything. Like, Fisher talks about this concept of depressive hedonia. Hedonia is pleasure seeking, of course, and he says कि usually जो depression होता है उसमें लोगों को pleasure नहीं मिलता है ना. In anything they do, they feel worthless about everything that they do, right? They don't think they are getting anything out of anything they perform, any task, any work, any conversation, any relationship they keep and everything. They don't feel anything about it. In that context, depressive hedonia is something completely opposite to that. Fisher says that hedonia is the only thing that people want. सारे लोग pleasure के पीछे ही भागते हैं, and just for the sake of getting pleasure. That's why he gives examples of school children who are, like, you know, obsessed over their own, you know, wearing earphones and, like, listening to music all the time throughout classes and everything, and, like, they want to be in that one matrix. He says it is a matrix where people are, like, you know, connected to this commodity which gives them pleasure of some kind, and there's no meaning to it. It's all, like, meaningless. We delve into a lot of meaninglessness in our daily lives. It's pretty much like daily life ही क्या कहते हैं meaningless endeavors में चल रही है in general. That's how it works in some ways. So uh, mental health issues related to depression and attention deficiency and everything like that are directly connected to this sort of cultural hedonia where we derive pleasure for the sake of pleasure uh, through these kinds of market commodities from the mass consumer culture itself. And these, of course, this marketplace, this consumer culture is a given in capitalist systems. And while it is important to note these hegemonic entities under capitalism, it's very important to know how these are affecting us and all that. But an understanding of these things doesn't really mean that one can get towards acting against it, that is, resisting it. Sure, now we know that our depression and our inability to do a lot of things, our supposed laziness and our inability and our non-functionality, whatever you want to call it. I'll use the term non-functionality a lot when I talk about these things. Are now we know that these things are due to larger cultural, social, and material systems that we engage in daily, in we live daily. But understanding it is just not enough. Now that we know about it, we would like to resist, we would like to change it because we know it is affecting our daily life so much. It's like theory and praxis. The Marxist terminologies are here. I mean, they were there already when I said capitalism. Oh my god, I don't think a lot of people anyway understand capitalism. So, where are we right now? 2023. Okay, this is a bad take. So it is like theory and practice that we may understand the theory behind some of the phenomena. Let's say, of course, this phenomena that we are talking about, non-functionality, but praxis against it, something that a lot of people won't be able to because they're non-functional, right? So we see how non-functionality will, of course, like move us away from any form of practice. First in our own lives as well, and perhaps also praxis that is required for other things, people who are political, people who engage in social issues and everything, they themselves also can find themselves in a fix in this context when they are kind of non-functional and basically cannot function under capitalism. But there are two things, right? So there's theory that you can understand this phenomena, and then there's praxis because of which you act against something, right? So in some ways it feels like, to be functional, one can think that to take action against something, one can also feel functional in that context, that one is at least doing something. On a personal note, I'll talk about my own journey through the past 1 year, 2021 September to 2022 September. uh, in this 1 year, how I maneuvered through a lot of things and how I felt, you know, different kinds of things in my work, and how I maneuvered through the feelings of, let's say, function and non-function both. While the situation that we live in, of course, the politics that we go through, ये ज़माना ही ऐसा है कि यहाँ पे सिर्फ नफ़रत और दरिंदगी ही दिखती है. तो in that context, to do something like ground reporting and field reporting was a great opportunity for that I created for myself. And I was very proud of myself that I could go out into the open and find stories of the people. If for me the definition of functional is that I go out onto the ground, I find the stories of people, I create a trenchant critique of caste, and if I can call that praxis, and that can for me then mean that yes, I have done something. A caveat is there, of course, when I speak about my own personal experiences. Of course, I speak from my own standpoint, and I have been, if in this the context of this video of like being functional, then I've been kind of functional in my daily tasks, at least so I can manage myself, and then I can be functional in the context of doing praxis and everything else. But was it the feeling that I was doing something to get around with my in general mundane life, or was it something that uh, made me satisfied that yes, I am resisting systems of oppression? I have rarely felt the latter in that context. In 1 year, I don't think I feel that I have raged against the machine in the way that like I would want to. But I think in general the feeling was okay. I was at least doing something in my life that was worthwhile. So still functional, but not as not as I want it to be. There's an element of satisfaction to this, uh, but I feel like a lot of people will also be like, even if we do praxis and also we function in daily life, they'll still not feel satisfaction in that context as well. I get that. But under capitalism, I don't think the systems under capitalism really think about what is satisfaction to you. तो अगर हम लोग को इसको क्वांटिफाई करना है, हम लोग को इसको एक कोई वैल्यू देनी है फंक्शन को, सो आई थिंक दिस इज़ हाउ यू डू वैल्यू इट इन अ scientific way. Let's say that we tell that okay, daily task number one, daily task number two, and then tasks around the job, and then tasks around your family, and then responsibility. So you can quantify it like that, and then that's when you say okay, probably you are functional right under capitalism. So everything will be defined by the larger systems of oppression. Here we're talking about capitalism specifically, and capitalism is of course governed by so many social factors and etc etc. Enter disability. The fact that any kind of disability can be so debilitating that it can limit a person's space to a tiny finality. Space ही छोटा हो जाता है, you can't do a lot of things anyway. That way it means that it tremendously changes lifestyle, and of course it changes functionality itself as well. So disability severely limits what a person can do in general. And in that way, a physical disability is on par with mental crises, as we discussed at the very beginning about depression and attention deficiency, which impedes function under capitalism. The difference between physical and mental disability is obvious here. Physical disabilities are like can be understood as like fated. People say it is done because of bad luck, and you receive a lot of sympathies for that. While mental disabilities usually brings about reactions like, oh, this is something wrong with you, inherently wrong with you, that you are doing something really wrong in your life, that you are going through it and you suffer through it. And people will say that the solution to your mental health crises is something within. Now, don't get me wrong here. I am pointing out a difference, and I will point another difference in a while. But I don't mean to point this difference out to say that these are two very different things altogether. Not at all. मेरा मतलब यहाँ पे ये है कि मैं इस बारे में इसलिए बात करना चाह रहा हूँ द डिफरेंसेस हियर, so that I can prove to you later that the differences that we talk about mental and physical disability is actually very superficial, and it doesn't make sense that much to actually differentiate that much between them. Rather, I would actually try to point out that both mental and physical disabilities complement each other. So hear me out on this example. Another superficial difference between physical and mental disabilities uh, can be talked about like this: that physical disabilities limit space. I have been on bed rest for the past 2 months, and it has severely limited my space for the past 2 months. And I have been in this room, uh, and I don't go out, and I don't do anything else as well. So, of course, that's the kind of limit that is there imposed here. Mental disabilities and mental health crises in general will probably fuck up the sense of time that one has. Now, as I said, physical disabilities limit space, mental disabilities may limit time, but again, I'm going to say this is a very superficial difference. It doesn't mean much because physical disabilities can also uh, lead to uh, a contorted sense of time and non-responsibility, let's say to submit work or to get up on time and things like that. So physical disabilities can also limit time itself, the sense of time itself, and mental disabilities can also limit space, and like you can't be that physical. You may not be able to get up from your bed, and you may not be able to go to your office, or like you can't even do the basic stuff of getting milk from the market. So that can also be a mental health crisis that like it is pretty damn obvious, and a lot of people go through it. A fucked up sleep cycle and in general a non-concept of routine can be induced by mental health crises and disabilities. Physical conditions of, let's say, any kinds of inflammation of the body, call it arthritis or lupus or anything like that, can severely lead to stress and depression. I can get depressed by sitting in this room for like, maybe many more months to come. I don't know what will happen, but yeah, it can lead to mental health crises as well. So as you can see, right, there is not much difference, and like they both complement each other as well. Hence, they are both part of the same discourse, and that discourse, as I is the topic of this video, is function, and specifically function under capitalism. So let's talk about disability and its relation to function under capitalism itself. So, as a first, either of these kinds of disabilities severely limits functions and everything, and it limits the idea of personhood itself. Like, I have heard people call themselves a vegetable because they cannot get up from bed. It's funny, but it's actually damn depressing to go through something like that daily, and like not able to do things as you want them to be. So definitely there is a limit to function itself, but what is actually like pretty different when we talk about disability is that the meaning of function itself radically is altered when there are disabled people involved in any conversation, let's say. This cold is is literally hilarious. I can't do this. I can't keep my hands under the blanket, but because when I want to speak, I want to do these movements. So I don't know what to do anymore. Would I be able to make this video? Let's find out. So, functions meaning for people with disability is radically different. How it works is basically it works in extremes. Some days it feels like doing the bare minimum to get up and even wash yourself and possibly enjoy your meal when you have some certain physical disabilities, let's say, is such a great thing. It's something that can make you satisfied. Okay, today I didn't feel that much pain, and I washed myself properly, and then I came and I had good food, and it didn't affect me that much. On the other side of this small joys of everyday life of living under disability is the other extreme of that very apocalyptic dread that things will not work out, things I'll not be okay, and to fight that, to be in a good mood even after realizing that some of the days that when you're lying in your bed and everything is the other extreme, and you cannot really function in any way that can give you some relief against this dread. In another context, it's also that this dread takes the form of your functionality as challenged in the wage system. Basically, you'll not be able to, like, because you cannot walk, let's say, or you cannot go out because of your inflamed body or anything like that, uh, आप काम कर ही नहीं सकते. You can't earn a living wage, and because the rest of the society is so much harped on that fact that we have to earn a living wage, we have to earn a living wage no matter what can be done? We can't do much about it. So there's no way you can function that can help you challenge this system where you have to earn wages, right? So there's not any kind of function that you can do. Maybe you can get a job. Yes, you can get a job that you can do while you suffer in pain at home, and you try to get as maximum care as possible from your caretakers and your family and your friends, but that's about it doesn't really fix the problem. What I'm trying to get at is basically in the former thing, where you can have your good days, you can have you can wash yourself properly someday, and then you can enjoy your time, maybe because like you are not too much in pain today. They were good days, but in the context of the wage system and the context of will you get okay, I don't think there are many to count. Hence it's pretty depressing, and it's despair really of hopelessness about everything. And there's one small facet that I have always fascinated me about despair, uh, that is very much connected to waiting, right? Because waiting is like the key thing in between being hopeful and hopeless. Despair can actually be termed as, quote, tired of waiting, unquote. That's the kind of despair I'm talking about. One is tired of waiting, and that's where the hopelessness kicks in. In general, all kinds of people wait. People wait for a bus to arrive. People wait for a friend to arrive, and people wait for their food to arrive and like basically so that they can eat and things like that. But for most able people, waiting is really a secondary task. Uh, but I think for disabled people, waiting is something that is like very much a bigger part of their reality. Waiting for your friends to visit you, let's say, so that you can have a conversation because you can't go out, or else your body will fuck you up, or like you're not able to walk at all, so you can't go out. And then waiting for your friends, or let's say, or waiting for a phone call, or a text, or a reply from someone who's dear to you and everything, right? That waiting time period is very much like inflated for disabled people. I think what is like the biggest kind of waiting, yeah, I was talking about these forms of waiting, right? So the biggest kind of waiting that you do when you're disabled is you wait to get okay, basically, so that you see that your condition hopefully gets mitigated. So you wait, you are on your medicines, you are doing all kinds of stuff, all kinds of therapies and everything, so that you get better as soon as possible. That omnipresent form of waiting is interspersed by the small waiting, like small kinds of waitings, like where you wait for your own well-wishers and caretakers so that they can fetch you water from the kitchen because you can't go there as well, right? So that kind of waiting is what haunts people with like severe disabilities. So as you may now be able to realize, waiting is kind of a function under capitalism, and disabled people for disabled people it is a primary function that they perform so that they get by their day, and you know so that they get by their day and possibly reach their hopeful goal of getting okay in some form, that they become quote unquote normal. As you can also see how uh, the meaning of function itself then changes for people with disabilities itself. And finally, I want to get back to our very initial distinction that we made, theory and praxis. Now we understand the theory. If this is a theory that connects function and disability under capitalism, uh, then what is the praxis that one should perform, or one can even at least think about to perform? As capitalism uh, kind of attributes non-function, being non-functional, as an inherent quality of disabled people, to resist that system, one has to possibly try to be in that system first. There is an extra step to resistance to that system as well. Disabled people have to make themselves heard, that they also have the right to work, uh, or they can also work, and they should be given that opportunity and not you know be considered non-functional on the get-go. It's depressing, but if disabled people can make themselves heard and let them be part of the system and possibly earn some capital, then they might be able to resist uh, uh, other forms of systems where they can participate in politics and everything else. But I think where where the clear difference here between abled and disabled people is that there is an extra step, that they have to humanize themselves into the system. They have been infantilized, they have been pretty much dehumanized in the context of being in the context of labor and work, right? So they have to maneuver through it in their own way. Hence, this is the kind of reality that uh, people live in, and this is the reality of function under capitalism. And when talked about in the context of disability, function radically changes into something else, something very different, and the whole game changes for disabled people itself. So, hope you liked my banter about function, disability, and my theorization and philosophy, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Hope you liked it, and if you liked it, please share and everything with your friends. Let me know how your own thoughts as well about these terminologies: function, disability, and function under capitalism, and then how disability affects it. And of course, your own input. Your inputs are very valuable. Do comment down below. Hope you like that video, and do subscribe to my YouTube. It's at the rate accidental leftism. My name is Kushal Chaudhary, and I can also be found at Instagram on accidentally leftist momos. So yeah, let's have a lot of conversations. I've started this uh, making videos and talking about things that I want to talk about. So maybe I'll put short content as well. This is going to be a long content. I can see that. So yeah, until then, until next time.